Oh, try not to bang the table because we're recording here, and so yeah. Really? Oh God, I married an asshole. What are we talking about today?
Today we will be discussing guns.
Guns. Pew pew. Oh,
That's
that.
Whiskey has a bell when she rings it when she needs to go out or when she's just trying to get attention.
Yeah. So, as you know, we come from Chicago. Well, Tiffany is originally from Ohio, the Cleveland area, but I am born and raised in Chicago, and we recently relocated to Arkansas. It's been almost a year that we've been in Arkansas.
Yeah, which is bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we actually now have our conceal and carry licenses.
We do.
And we've taken a handgun 101 class.
Yes.
We've been going to the range, and we're getting ready to purchase our first guns.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been an evolution for sure.
We were not these people.
No.
No, we were very much anti-gun.
Correct.
Growing up in Chicago in the 70s and 80s, I didn't really hear any guns or anything like that. That started to change for me maybe recently in the past decade or so. Things started to get, bad. There was a severe uptick in gun violence in Chicago. And I went from not hearing guns to, hearing them, and it increasingly kind of encroaching on the neighborhood that I was in.
Yes, I feel like, so my experience or lack thereof with guns in my life, Shelley had already mentioned that I grew up in Ohio, and I grew up in a suburb outside of Cleveland. Funny enough, the reason, now, and this was before I was born, we moved from the east side of Cleveland was due to gun violence. So my sister, my brother, and my parents have a different experience with guns than I have. So they moved due to the violence to the sleepy suburb that I kind of grew up in. But I don't have a history with guns at all. I saw them at the museum, which were like Civil War muskets. And then I saw, police officers. I knew that police officers had guns, and I would see them on their hips, but I don't believe like I really had any friends whose dads hunted or anything like that. So I have zero gun knowledge or experience growing up. And then even with moving to Chicago, I kind of fell into and believed the hype about like there's just guns everywhere and shootings every day in Chicago. So when I first moved there, I was very cognizant of that, and it's like, these neighborhoods that I need to stay away from and all of those things.
For me, shit really got real. There was one year me going to this literary event in Bronzeville, and we park on 47th Street. There's this guy in this car, just this young dude, and he's riding down 47th Street like Yosemite Sam with his arm out the window and just shooting in the air. And we hit the ground, and you see, like, as he's driving, everyone hitting the ground, jumping behind cars. And so we jump behind my truck. Ping sound where one of the bullets had hit the street sign above my head. I mean, I just froze. And then after he's gone, everyone's kind of picking themselves up, looking to make sure everyone's okay, and we just walk into the venue, and we do everything like we normally would have done, and I felt like I was just in a trance the whole time. But for a solid year after, I had nightmares. I had nightmares that a bullet was going to come through my house and kill me when I was asleep. Like, I realized I had gun trauma, but then I felt ashamed about having gun trauma because I've never been shot. I've never seen anyone get shot, and so I felt like I didn't even have, you know, a right to be suffering from gun trauma because it hadn't affected me in some of the very, very strong ways that it has to others.
Shelly and I have had an experience together. I've been together 3 years now.
3 years.
Married 1.
Yep.
When we first decided to move in together, so I moved in with Shelly into her home. Even in that, I mean, it was a relatively short, in the big scheme of things, it's a relatively short time that her and I lived together in her home on the south side of Chicago. So It wasn't a very long time, but even in that little chunk of time, the gun violence got increased and closer to the house. So what I love about the neighborhood that we lived in is that Avalon Park.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's mostly older folks.
Yeah.
And like just no shenanigans.
And I grew up in that neighborhood.
It's just,
my mom's house.
People keep
5
their
blocks
lawns up.
Yeah, it's 5 blocks from where I lived. So yeah.
Yeah, her neighbor was like the sweetest old lady, Miss Lena, who passed away. But everyone was like older folks, and there was like an elementary school across the street.
Yeah.
So it was just very, I mean, it was very Pleasantville-ish, except for, you know, it got...
Occasionally, mostly during the summer months, you would hear gunfire.
Right.
And...
because no one could gangbang when it's cold, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, one summer, I think this was before we were together, but I found a bullet.
It wasn't before, it was... Oh, when we first started dating.
Okay, so
because we put the
we found a bullet in my backyard, and it's like, oh man, this was in our space, and we actually took it and we put it up in the window.
We have been
outside
for a while. I don't know why that was our decision.
You don't know what.
I mean, what are you doing?
What are you gonna do? We took a trip to Arkansas one Memorial Day weekend, and when we came back, we got in really, really late that night. It was probably about 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And so just as soon as we had hauled in our luggage from the car, there was gunfire, and it was so close, we had to hit the floor.
Yeah.
And so we hit the floor, yeah, just the look on Tiffany's face. I mean, to look on, she wasn't my wife then, she's my wife now, but to look over there and just see these tears streaming down her face, and, you know, she was being so quiet. Yeah, so at first I said we need to get away from the windows, and we walked into the foyer, and then when it persisted, I said, I think we need to get down. And so we just kind of slumped down, and there we were, just kind of in this area of space between the 2 bedrooms and bathroom of that house, away from the windows, and we're just down there after this 10-hour road trip.
Yeah.
And I look over, and she's just got these silent tears streaming down her face. And
I know. Like I said, I've been going on and on about how I don't have any gun violence experience. So that was, for me, was, you know, in living in Chicago, I had heard gunshots before, but these were very close. Close enough to where we knew that we would need to take cover. I've had the same fears that Shelly has had about just getting shot doing the dishes, just because you're in front of a window, because that's increasingly what happened in Chicago. Most of the people that ended up dying from gunshots were just women and children who were in their homes.
Yeah.
We lived on off of a dead-end street, so like someone stole a car and parked that stolen car on our dead-end street. We knew that it was stolen, it was ransacked and all of these things. It was unlocked, the wires were exposed, because I guess that's how you get a car to start, when you don't have the keys.
And we knew it was stolen, even though we know absolutely zero about stolen cars, because sometimes you know people who know more than zero about stolen cars. And so
we had a friend who came, it was his former profession.
Yeah.
He used to take cars that weren't his.
Dabbled
in it. he stopped that life, and
Yeah.
he came over to confirm, oh, this car is stolen. And I know this because I used to be a car taker.
When we called the police or 311.
Yeah, because you called 311.
Yeah, we called 311 and they came over and they confirmed, or they ran the plates.
No, back it up.
What happened?
We called 311 and they were like, and? Oh, yes. So our friend, our cousin,
Yeah.
who used to dabble in car taking, said call 911 and say that it's like an active, the ar being stolen. So I did. He stayed with me and I called and I said, hey, listen, this car just appeared. I think it's stolen. It's ransacked. There's wires everywhere, whatever. So the police did end up coming immediately then.
Yeah.
Fun fact, it was an AK's car because it was, first of all, it was a minivan and it had AK license plates that had been scratched out.
AKA in Chicago and you
With
were
a minivan.
missing your minivan.
I knew where it was.
Well, I mean, it's probably over on, what is that, 103rd in Doty. That's
Where cars go?
That is,
steal them?
that is where, whether they're stolen or whether you just have 3 tickets and the city has towed them, that is the tow lot.
That's where it is.
That's where cars
Call
go to
911.
die. Cars and poor people's souls go to die because you couldn't afford to pay the tickets. I know, because I was a poor, and my car did get towed, and it did end up on Doty Avenue.
It stayed there? It's still there?
No, I Mom. I had to mom, so, and I'm fortunate enough to
Call
have
mom. That's
mom.
what she means by mom.
Yeah, to take care of things, but I am for sure still paying for it from her. So,
no.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law is gracious and lets things go and doesn't hold on to stuff. Rumors.
Yeah. She there are very, very nice people in Arkansas, and we have been just knocked over with kindness.
Yes.
But yes, also the Confederacy is alive and well down here.
For sure.
We have a
We'll get into
different
that.
set of dangers that threaten us as Black women,
Right.
queer,
Right.
and put all 3 of those together.
Right.
Our experiences were overwhelmingly nonviolent.
Right.
It's those instances of violence that really scare you and stick with you. Here, we have not had many. There's been 2 in the just less than a year that we've been here of things that
Make you go,
and
what
also
was that about?
make you go, let's get a conceal and carry
Right.
license and get
So
some
we
guns.
can tell you how we were. That makes you be like, okay, and also we need to protect
So
ourselves.
the difference here, we go to Chicago where you have few people who have guns, but there's an excessive amount of gun violence and gun incidents. We come here and everyone has guns, and we have not heard a single shot of gunfire since we've been down here outside of being on a gun range. And
Right.
everyone has guns.
And let me just stress, I know she said everyone has guns, and she said it twice now, but I need you to know that when she says everyone, she means every man, woman, and child.
Yeah.
That is confirmed. We'll get into it, but when we were at our handgun 101 class, I mean, there are birthday parties at gun ranges and things like that.
Yeah.
People cannot wait to buy their children, very small children, their first gun. So you can rest assured that everyone in the state of Arkansas has a pistol. Like in Chicago with street harassment and that kind of thing, you can tell that someone who is doing that type of thing is they're just harassing anyone with boobies. Here, if you're going to get harassed or something like that, it would be more targeted.
Yeah, they've
They're
been
looking at
watching you all week, and
Well,
but we've never experienced that. I just want to say.
right. So here, it's Chicago. It's more of just like I'm a harasser.
Right.
Here, it's like, oh,
If it were to happen here and it
Right.
hasn't, we feel that it would be
well,
targeted.
has it not?
Right.
Ever.
And so for me, I have been fishing a few times here by myself. Love it. It's the natural state.
Yes.
Lots to offer. And
So much fishing.
I have been going by myself, and most of those experiences were overwhelmingly positive. People would realize, here I am fishing by myself, I am catching jack shit, and no, that is not the name of a fish. I'm just not catching anything.
Yeah.
And so it's always like some
Luck is
older
not with
man, either black or white, who comes over and is like, well, here, try this out. And they give me like a lure or something to work with.
Cool. Colors.
Which is cool. But there was one instance, and this is interesting because I was not even fishing in a kind of out of the way place where I had been doing before. I had started going to kind of more public looking places. And so apparently people like to just kind of park here and maybe look at the water, but they don't ever seem to be facing the water.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was a guy, he was sitting in this red pickup truck, an older model red pickup truck, and I noticed him because, you know, when you're a woman alone, a black person alone, a black woman alone, a black queer woman alone,
all the things.
you're looking, you're noticing. And so I'm fishing, and I know he was just sitting there, but also, you know, he didn't pull off the highway because he saw me. He was sitting there when I got there,
Right.
and not near the water. So I started fishing. I had been fishing for a while, and then the next time I checked on him, he was like actually approaching me, and I'm like, well, okay, let's keep an eye on this. I've been approached many times before,
And like we said, everyone is crazy nice here.
Yeah.
Everyone is super nice.
But this guy, I mean, he looks like Kid Rock.
Okay, so
And
there we go.
he's coming towards me.
Yep.
And he sits on the bench next to
Looks like
where
Kid Rock. I'm sorry.
I'm fishing, and we just kind of enjoy a moment of silence together. And I want to say enjoy a moment of silence together, which is he's sitting on his bench watching me. I'm fishing, but now mostly watching him out of the corner of my eye. And I'm looking at my truck, which is parked very close to me, and the tailgate is open. And I'm thinking about all of the things that I have access to should he decide to do something more than watching. And so he strikes up a conversation. It's very weird because he's just kind of telling me what he's doing there, that and he's supposed to be somewhere else. And he's just basically, I don't know, wasting time because he doesn't want to go. But it sounds more like he's mumbling to himself than actually having a conversation with me. And so I'm just nodding and saying, and
just trying to fish.
What really also concerns me is what everyone says when I'm fishing. It's the first thing everyone always says to me. What do you think that is? Anyone who comes up and I'm fishing, what's the first thing do you think they'll say?
What are you doing?
No, I'm fishing. I'm clearly fishing. What else would they say?
No, what are you doing here?
I'm fishing
How's it
still.
fishing? Did you catch anything?
Boom, there we go. Thank you. He never once asked or said that. He just sat down, he watched, and then he started doing this kind of stream of consciousness, talking more to himself. And so he gets up and says, well, he's got to get going. He hops in his truck, and he starts doing these like spins in the dirt. And once he does that, I can see the biggest Confederate flag flying off the side of his truck ever. In fact, it wasn't like a truck with a Confederate flag attached. It was like a big-ass Confederate flag with a truck attached to it. And I was just like, man, what just happened? And he drove off. And I'm like, I need to have something.
Yeah, give me a beat.
Tell the watermelon story.
Me? Shelly typically goes fishing alone, so I went with her, particularly after this last weird incident that occurred. Once the Confederacy appeared while she was fishing. So I went with her the next time, and we had kind of a weird experience. It was so strange. So two teenage boys pulled up in a pickup truck. They, oddly enough, had on the exact same outfit, gray shorts, light blue t-shirts that were
Like a
cut off.
uniform or something.
Yeah, like a uniform, like they came from some sort of practice. They were definitely, obviously old enough to drive, but couldn't have been in their 20s. So we're talking between 16 and 19 here. Young white guys pull up in their pickup truck very close to where we're parked and to where we're fishing.
Right.
They're already being kind of loud, which I have learned in my fishing etiquette, is that's a no-no, is one, just being super close, and two, being kind of loud.
Right.
So they pull up, the music is on, they're already just kind of amped or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They get out of the truck, and this is going to sound like the fake part, but they have bags full of fruit, particularly watermelon.
Watermelon.
And by watermelon, I mean like full watermelons.
Yeah.
So they have just like watermelons, and they're breaking them on the ground.
Right.
And picking up the chunks of watermelon and then throwing them into the water, but also throwing them into the water right next to where she was fishing.
So I'm fishing, and then here's a white boy throwing watermelon.
Breaking watermelon, throwing it into the water. Both of them are doing it.
On its own is a hate crime. It just is. It just is. It looked delicious.
Why?
It looked delicious.
So that was also kind of like, we kind of rationalized this to ourselves later on, like, oh, maybe it was like molded fruit and their parents asked them to dispose of it. And
how do you know it's moldy when you have to break it open?
Exactly.
And it wasn't moldy. It looked fine. And so it wasn't just watermelon, it was cantaloupe, but also...
Yeah, there was other fruits, but it was predominantly watermelon, and they were also throwing it into the water as she was fishing.
Right.
So they do that.
Giggling and
giggling. We just have weird things happening.
Yeah.
Pertaining to fishing.
Yeah. And pickup trucks.
Pickup trucks and fishing. And so that's kind of my concern. Shelly garners a lot of attention as a woman fishing. When we're together, we garner attention being women fishing and then also being black women fishing. So people are drawn to us also and literally just kind of trying to figure out, what are you doing here, all that. Here's what I know about all the people that are drawn to us or the people that are doing this, black or white, everyone has a gun.
I mean, we haven't seen them, but we can just assume.
Everyone has it.
So once we got here, our ideal of guns and gun ownership changed and evolved. And so one of the things that we really want to do here is we want to build a homestead. One of the things that we're doing here, and we're certainly going to continue to vlog and podcast, our journey to build our homestead and what that looks like as being two black queer women.
Right.
Building a homestead, and right now it's hard enough that you have to do the whole financial thing for buying land and the physical thing of building a homestead. But with us, because we have those three identifiers that always seem to make us a target for something, being black, female, and queer.
Right. And being black, which we cannot hide.
Right.
The other two.
Well, we can't hide the female.
Well,
right. Also, when we find something and buy it, we also want to be able to protect it and protect ourselves as we go into these different spaces. And so we came to the realization that in order to do that, and yes, being what they teach women all the time of being aware of your surroundings. Right. When I posted what happened with the fishing thing with the Confederate flag, I got all the family members commenting, not so much glad you're safe cuz or anything like that, but you got to be careful. Like, what the hell? Do you not think that we're not being careful when we're out? But the whole thing is, and I hate to think had something happened to me, it would have been this whole sort of victim blaming. What was she doing out there fishing all alone? Like, I shouldn't be able to fish all alone. How dare you be black,
and how dare you be a woman?
You should know better. You should know better. Well, we do know better, but we're here in the natural state, and I'll be damned if I can't go fishing alone or otherwise. So I did the conceal and carry class. Yes. We've taken the handgun 101 class. We're going to continue.
Which was wonderful because everyone was black.
Oh, man.
Everyone was a woman.
It was an anomaly. It was a class, a full class. They only have 4 in the class. The instructor was a black woman, and all 4 of us, well, I mean, 2 of us there, black women, but the other 2 women were black women
Oh, yes.
as well in the class, and even the instructor had to admit that that was like some sort of anomaly.
Handgun 101 class was particularly for people who are very skeptical about guns and just we couldn't find the positive in guns in any way, shape, or form. This was the best class for us. Our conceal and carry class, however, did not make us feel any better or any safer in guns. And we're not going to go into that because I think that it is the whole thing. The whole experience was kind of trash.
But it's part of this. It's part of this.
Yeah, I mean, we signed up for
the women's class.
For the women's class in hopes that it was going to be taught by a woman. It turned out that the woman's husband actually taught the class. And it's a class, I mean, so think of it in a very much classroom setting, and there's a certain number of hours. So it was a long time. So it was a lot.
It's a 5-hour class, but so one thing that
it was
we
all
took
women.
Some sort of, so yeah, because it was a women's only class, but then we got in there because there's always, are we going to be the only black women? We live in a town that's about 80% white and 20% black.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's certainly my first time, not Tiffany's, from living in a predominantly white environment. And so we were pleasantly surprised that the class was about 50-50 black women and white women, and everything was going on as well can be expected in a 5-hour class where like 4 hours and 30 minutes of it is in a classroom.
Yeah.
It's going at least as well as can be expected, and I don't know why this white man instructor decided that he was going to bring up as an example of Trayvon Martin, right? But anyway, he was talking about this insurance that you can get, and it's this low-cost insurance if you should ever have to use your weapon on someone.
So it's essentially having a lawyer on retainer.
Yeah.
So you can pay just $10 a month, and you'll always have a lawyer at your disposal in the event you have to use your weapon. He had mentioned that George Zimmerman had paid a little over $2 million for his defense.
And so what we got from that lesson was George Zimmerman could have shot and killed Trayvon Martin, unarmed teenage Trayvon Martin, for as little as $10 a month had he got.
Is how the class ended. And we were like, oh, okay.
And everyone was uncomfortable.
Black and white.
Like everyone bristled. Like, why?
Horrible.
When we took our handgun 101 class, Trayvon Martin did come up again, but in a different way. So again, this is black women, and we didn't get all into it, but our instructor did tell us, why she thought stand your ground would be a horrible thing in Arkansas, which is something that they were trying to do. I mean, if you look at how many black people are killed anyway,
all you have to do is say you feel threatened,
right?
And then you can just murder us.
I mean,
forget it.
It would be even more of a bloodbath.
And it was like night and day. So the conceal and carry class was a necessary evil, I would almost say. And we had to do it in order to conceal and carry. But this handgun 101 class, so here's the one thing that the conceal and carry doesn't teach you, the in and outs, how to shoot. In the handgun 101, it was so good. We got, we had these guns, we took them apart, all of it over and over again. They make you do it over again. Take them apart, load it, magazine, they say the terms over and over. So you just do that for like a solid hour.
Yeah.
And different sizes, so 9mm and all this stuff, and 380s, and so you just do it over and over again, and then you shoot. I come from the camp of, is it safer for black people to have guns or not to have them? Because it's a little bit of damned if we do, damned if we don't. That's the thing. And I don't want to contribute to the ridiculous argument that, like, the more guns you add to a situation, the safer you are.
No, we're not saying that.
That's not at all how that works.
We want to protect us as women for sure. And all we want to do is get our little patch of land, our little, 40 acres and a mule, but not 40 acres, more like 10, and not a mule because she's got an issue with horses. But we just want to carve out something for us and our generations and build something self-sustainable.
Yeah.
And part of that, and part of living here and living in the South, we feel it necessary to be able to protect ourselves and arm ourselves. And
So it is about safety, but I will say the one thing that I've come to terms with when it comes to guns is, and Shelley has said this multiple times, I now look at a gun more as a tool.
it is a tool.
And not so much this very violent, horrific weapon. And in that the Handgun 101 class, it was very much presented as a tool. And here's what this tool does, and here's what you need to know about it. This is a dangerous tool, much like a table saw and lots of all the other tools.
Yeah.
But I can get behind tools and their purpose and what they're for and how they can be dangerous. What I can't get behind is these violent weapon killing machines.
Our philosophy is the world would be a better place without them. Complete.
Still, that is our philosophy.
Yes.
I mean, despite what you've kind of heard towards the latter half of this, a gun-free world would be
Our preference.
Yeah. Last thing that I will say about this trash conceal and carry class was that one of the, besides the horrible kind of Trayvon Martin remark, like, yeah, that was horrible, he also talked about how, like, women are lucky because, so there's this holster that you can get that's like kind of between your boobs, like it's under your boobs, and you can keep your gun here. And he was saying how if anyone ever attacks you,
You could just
when you lift up your
flash.
shirt, the person that's coming to, you know,
They'll
rape
be
or
so stunned.
to rape or murder you is going to see your boobies and be so like, what? That you'll have plenty of time to get your gun out and shoot them. So it's just like,
It's weird.
like your boobs will freeze them into place, and then you'll have ample time,
Really connect
pun intended
it.
on ample, to like shoot
Yeah.
them.
So thank you for joining us for another episode of Pink Whiskey and Bourbon Girl and our simultaneous broadcast of Sojourner.
Yes. Here, here.
All